The interview studio was quiet, the lights soft, and the cameras ready. Amara sat on the red couch, her hands shaking just a little. The host smiled gently and asked, "Who are you really?" For a moment, she looked down, then lifted her head with calm strength. "I'm Amara, a girl who was thrown out with nothing, a girl who used her tears to water her dreams." The audience sat still, eyes wide. She continued, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't grow up with love. I was called a burden, unwanted, trash. But the streets didn't break me. They taught me to fight, to feel, to sing." Then came the line that shook everyone watching, both in the studio and across the country on their screens. "Sometimes pain teaches you how to sing louder." Her voice cracked just a little, but she didn't cry. The host leaned forward, clearly moved. "And where is your family now?" he asked. She paused, smiled sadly, and replied, "The people who showed me kindness when I had nothing, they're my family now." Millions watched the clip that evening. It went viral within hours. People everywhere were asking, "Who is this girl? Where did she come from?" And slowly, the truth began to spread. But still, no one knew the full story. No one knew the woman who once slammed the door on her was now sitting in a small village house, watching the same interview with a pale face and a heavy heart. In the quiet house of Kubwa, the TV was always on now, but not for news or drama. It was always tuned to Amara. Her interviews, her songs, her story. Every channel had something about her. Nahledi sat on the couch, arms crossed, jaw tight. Every time Amara's face appeared on the screen, she felt her stomach twist. The same girl they all called useless. The same girl who wore torn slippers and ate leftovers. Now she was being called Africa's soul voice. Nahledi couldn't understand it. She had always been the pretty one, the pampered one, the one with clean clothes, birthday parties, and attention. Amara was supposed to stay in the shadows, not shine brighter than the sun. "This is unfair," Nahledi muttered one night, staring at the TV. "That should have been me. I could have been famous too if someone had just given me a chance." But deep down, she knew the truth. She never had Amara's heart, her pain, or her strength. She only had comfort, and now that comfort tasted bitter. One evening, Selina noticed her daughter pacing around, eyes wild with thoughts. "What are you thinking, Nahledi?" she asked. Nahledi turned, eyes sharp. "If she can rise from nothing, I can rise from here too. And if I can't be her, I'll at least stand beside her so the world sees me too." She opened her old social media accounts and posted a long message with an old childhood photo of her and Amara. "Proud of my sister Amara. She's always been a star, even when no one saw it. I'm with you, sis. Always." Within minutes, the comments came pouring in. People began praising her. "Wow, such a supportive sister. She's lucky to have you. True love in a broken world." Nahledi smiled as the likes grew, but she didn't smile out of love. It was jealousy wearing a pretty mask. Later that week, she managed to contact one of Amara's team members. She sweet-talked her way in. "I want to surprise her. I want to be part of her healing. We're family after all," she said with a soft smile. The woman was touched. "That's beautiful. I'm sure Amara would love that." But Nahledi had a plan. She didn't want to reconnect. She wanted cameras, attention, headlines. Long-lost sister reunites with star singer. She even practiced her emotional tears in front of a mirror, pressing her fingers to her eyes until they looked red. When she finally got to meet Amara at a private event, she wore a soft blue dress and brought flowers. Cameras were rolling. Amara was surprised, a little confused, but hugged her. The crowd clapped. Nahledi whispered, "I've missed you, sister." Amara didn't say much. She just smiled politely, but something felt off. Nahledi's eyes didn't shine with warmth. They burned with something colder. She stuck close to Amara that day, making sure she was in every photo, answering questions that weren't hers, laughing louder than needed. One reporter even asked, "Do you sing too, Nahledi?" She giggled and replied, "We both grew up with music. Maybe you'll hear from me soon too." That night, Amara sat alone in her dressing room, staring at the mirror. She could feel something wasn't right. Her heart, which had survived the streets, recognized false love easily. She whispered to herself, "Some people don't return because they miss you. They return because they miss the spotlight." But she didn't say anything yet. She watched, she waited, and in the shadows, Naledi's plan was only beginning. It was a quiet afternoon in Amara's small apartment in Mji Kuu. The world outside was buzzing with her name, posters, billboards, music shows. But inside, she was just a girl sitting on the floor, sorting through her old things. Her ragged cloth bag lay in the corner, the same one she had carried when Selina threw her out that rainy night. She hadn't opened it in weeks. As she emptied the contents, she found a few broken hairpins, an old handkerchief, and a faded photo of her father. Then her fingers brushed against something strange. A small envelope, soft and dusty, tucked deep into the inner pocket. Her heart skipped. She didn't remember putting it there. With shaky hands, she pulled it out and saw her name written on it in a beautiful, gentle script. Amara. She stared at it, her breath catching. She slowly opened it, careful not to tear the fragile paper inside. The letter began with words that made her eyes fill with tears instantly. "My sweet daughter, if you are reading this, I'm no longer with you in this world." Amara's hands trembled as she read on. "I had hoped to watch you grow, to sing with you, to hold you during storms. But fate has another plan. So I leave you these words, my voice on paper, to carry with you when mine is no longer around." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she continued. The world felt like it had stopped moving. "You were born for greatness, my child. Your voice is not just a gift. It is your shield, your sword, your magic. When people try to silence you, sing louder. When the world turns cold, wrap yourself in the warmth of your dreams." Amara pressed the letter to her heart, as if trying to hug the words. The feeling was unlike anything she had ever known, like a piece of her soul had just come home. "I know life may not be fair to you. Some may treat you like you don't matter. But always remember, you are light, you are fire, you are not meant to stay hidden in the shadows." Her voice cracked as she whispered the next line out loud. "Never let darkness dim your light." Amara broke down, not with sadness, but with something deeper. Grief mixed with strength, pain mixed with peace. She hadn't known her mother. Selina had never spoken of her. But now, through this letter, she had met the woman who gave her life, and her mother believed in her. Even before the world did, she sat with the letter for a long time, not wanting to fold it back. She finally placed it in a golden frame and set it beside her bed. Every morning after that, she would read a line from it. Whenever the pressure of fame felt too heavy, or when she missed the girl she used to be. That night during an interview, the host asked her, "What keeps you grounded, Amara? With all this attention, how do you stay so calm, so kind?" She smiled softly and replied, "A letter from someone who saw my light before the world ever did." The next day, Amara shared the letter online with a caption that read, "I never got to meet my mother, but her voice found me when I needed it most. This is for anyone who feels lost. Your light is still inside you." Within hours, the post went viral. Thousands of people, especially young girls, commented that they felt seen, inspired, even healed. Many wrote, "I cried reading this." Others shared their own stories of being abandoned, forgotten, and found again. The letter became more than just words. It became a movement. People began quoting it, singing it, printing it on posters and t-shirts. Never let darkness dim your light. And somewhere, in that quiet apartment, Amara sat with her hands over her heart, feeling closer to her mother than ever before. She whispered, "I will not let you down. I promise." It started with a simple post on social media. Just a few words from an old woman in Kubwa village. But those words hit the internet like fire in dry grass. "I knew Selina before she married Amara's father. That woman never loved him. She just wanted his money. And after he died, she turned his daughter into her housemaid." Within minutes, people began sharing the post. Screenshots flooded every platform. Some thought it was fake. But then came the photos, old pictures from the village. Amara's father smiling kindly, standing beside Selina. And in the background, a tiny barefoot Amara sweeping the yard. The woman who posted it, Mahma Tehma, was a respected elder in Kubwa. People knew she never lied. She wrote another message. I stayed silent for years, but no more. That child suffered while Selina and her daughter lived like queens. She would beat her, starve her, and tell her she was useless. Now the world loves Amara. But I remember when she had no one. The public couldn't believe it. Thousands of comments came pouring in. How could a woman treat a child like that? No wonder Amara's songs sound like pain. They come from real hurt. Selina doesn't deserve forgiveness. Soon reporters came knocking on doors in Kubwa. Other neighbors stepped forward, confirming the story. They remembered little Amara walking barefoot in the rain, doing all the chores while Nahledi played with dolls. One man said, "I once gave her bread because she hadn't eaten in 2 days. Selina told her she didn't need food if she wasn't working hard enough." Back in the city, Selina was trying to keep up appearances, but the news hit her like a brick wall. One morning she woke up to find angry messages flooding her phone. "Gold digger, we know what you did." She turned on the TV and saw her face on the news, not as a concerned mother, but as the cruel woman who nearly destroyed a rising star. Nahledi panicked. "Mama, what do we do? People are calling us monsters." But Selina had no answer. Her lies had finally cracked, and the truth was pouring out for all to see. Meanwhile, Amara stayed quiet. She didn't post, didn't comment, didn't react. But her silence was powerful. It told the world she didn't need revenge. Truth was speaking for her now. In one of her interviews later that week, the host gently asked, "Amara, do you have anything to say to the people who hurt you?" She took a breath and said softly, "I've already said everything I needed to say through my song." That one sentence touched millions. While Selina faced the shame of the world, Amara kept rising, carried not by hate, but by the strength of her truth. And Mahma Tehma's final post said it all. The past may be dark, but it's the light that always shines the longest. Nahledi had always lived in the shadow of her sister's growing fame, and it burned her inside. She couldn't understand how the same girl she used to laugh at, the girl who wore torn clothes and washed the dishes, was now shining on the biggest stages of Africa. Every time she saw Amara on TV, her heart twisted with jealousy. One evening, Nahledi quietly sneaked into Amara's old room in Kubwa. There she found a notebook filled with handwritten lyrics and melody notes. On the first page, in soft pencil, it read, "When the world turns away, let your voice become the sun." Nahledi smirked. She tore out the page and stuffed it into her bag. A few days later, a new singing competition opened up in a nearby town. Mji Kuu Rising Voices. Nahledi saw her chance. She signed up using a fake name, wore a glittery dress, and rehearsed the stolen song over and over. She didn't understand the meaning behind the lyrics, but she hoped the judges wouldn't notice. When it was her turn to perform, she stepped onto the stage, trying to act confident. The lights were bright, the audience quiet. She began to sing, but her voice trembled. It was pretty, but it lacked depth. It lacked soul. It wasn't Amara. One of the judges, a sharp woman named Afia, leaned forward. She whispered something to the others. As Nahledi finished the song, trying to fake a few high notes, the room stayed silent. Then Afia spoke. "That song, where did you get it?" Nahledi froze. I wrote it," she lied. The judge frowned. "Funny, because I've heard this exact song before. From Amara. She sang it during a private rehearsal months ago, and let me be very clear, that wasn't your voice." The audience gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Nahledi's face turned pale. One of the staff members pulled out their phone and played a clip of Amara humming the same melody in an interview. It was over. Security asked Nahledi to step down. The organizers released a statement later that night. Contestant disqualified for plagiarism and impersonation. Original song belongs to Amara, Africa's soul voice. The internet exploded. Memes, angry tweets, video edits. Nahledi the faker started trending. Amara didn't say much. She simply posted a clip of herself singing the original song with the caption, "Truth doesn't need to shout, it sings." Meanwhile, Nahledi locked herself in her room, ashamed and humiliated. She never expected to be exposed like that. She thought she could wear her sister's voice like a dress, But it didn't fit. It never would. Because what made Amara special wasn't just her voice, it was the pain behind it, the hope woven into every note, the light that had survived even the darkest nights. And that could never be stolen. The email came early in the morning. While Amara was sipping tea by her small apartment window, she almost thought it was a mistake at first. The subject line read, "World Tour Offer, from Africa to the World." It was from a well-known music agent in South Africa named Jabahri Okafor. He'd seen her viral interview, heard her songs, and watched every performance she had given. His message was full of excitement. "Amara, the world needs to hear your voice. We want to take you on a 12-country tour. South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, UK, and even the USA. Your voice is not just music, it's a movement." At first, her heart jumped. A world tour. Her name on global stages, bright lights, cheering crowds, her story being heard by millions. It sounded like a dream, but something inside her felt heavy. She thought about Mahma Tehma, who gave her hope, about Bahba Tunde, the street vendor who shared bread with her when she had nothing, about the children still sleeping under broken carts in Mji Kuu, just like she once did, and about her village, Kubwa, with its dusty paths and whispering trees, where her mother once sang lullabies. Later that night, her manager asked excitedly, "Amara, are we saying yes?" This could change everything. But Amara stared at the screen, her fingers still. Then she quietly said, "Fame means nothing if I forget where I came from. If I leave now, will I still be the girl who sang from pain, or just another name in flashing lights?" The team around her didn't understand. They saw money, fame, awards. But Amara saw something deeper. She remembered sleeping on the cold ground, singing quietly so the night wouldn't feel so lonely. That voice, the one the world loved, was born in silence, not in studio. She didn't reject the offer. She asked for time. She needed to think. That evening, she walked through the same streets where she once begged for food. A little girl selling flowers looked up at her and whispered, "Are you the singing lady from the TV?" Amara knelt beside her and said, "Yes, but once I was just like you." The girl smiled and handed her a flower. "Then maybe I'll be on TV too." That simple moment felt louder than the biggest concert. Amara held the flower close, looked up at the stars and whispered, "I'll go, but I'll never leave." Because even if her feet walked on stages across the world, her heart would always stay in Mji Kuu. The sun rose slowly over the village of Kubwa, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. It was the same sky that had once watched a young girl named Amara cry alone in the cold, thrown out like trash. But today, the winds carried a different song, one of hope, not sorrow. Amara stood quietly in the middle of an open piece of land, her eyes filled with emotion. This was the exact spot where years ago her stepmother, Selina, had screamed at her in front of the whole village. "You'll never be anything," Selina had said. "You're worthless." But today, construction workers moved quickly, laying bricks and painting walls. A beautiful sign had already been installed, the Amara's School of Voices and Light. Children ran around the edges of the site, laughing and singing little songs. Most of them were barefoot, some had no parents. Many had voices, soft, unsure voices that the world had never heard. Amara looked at them and smiled gently. "No girl should sleep on the streets with a voice no one hears," she said softly to the reporters nearby. "I know how it feels when no one listens, when no one believes in you. That's why I'm building this school, not just to teach music, but to give hope." The idea had come to her after the world tour offer. While others told her to chase fame, Amara felt something tugging at her heart. She remembered how a single kind word from a stranger had changed her path, how one piece of bread and a warm blanket had kept her alive. She wanted to become that light for someone else. The school wasn't just a building, it was a message, a promise. It had classrooms for voice training, instruments donated by musicians across Africa, and even a small studio where girls could record their own songs. But more than anything, it had space for stories, space for broken girls to find their strength. On the day of the school's soft opening, the villagers of Kubwa gathered around, some whispering in awe, others holding back tears. Even those who once ignored her now clapped and smiled. Children sang songs of joy, their tiny voices echoing across the hills. Selina stood far behind the crowd, hidden under a scarf. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. She had never imagined that the same girl she kicked out like garbage would come back like this. Not with revenge, but with love and power. Amara didn't look her way. She wasn't here to make Selina feel pain. She was here for every little girl who had ever been silenced. During her speech, Amara took a deep breath. "This is not just a music school," she said. "It's a home, a place where your voice is safe, where your story matters, where your pain becomes your power." The crowd erupted in applause. Later that day, a young girl named Mji came up to her. She had big eyes and a nervous smile. "Miss Amara," she whispered, "I have a song, but I don't know if it's good." Amara knelt down and took her hand. "If it's your truth, it's already beautiful." And just like that, the cycle of hope began. Amara had once been a forgotten voice in the dark, but now she had built a place where no voice would be forgotten again. The grand opening of the Amara's School of Voices and Light was brighter than any festival Kubwa had ever seen. Colorful ribbons danced in the wind, children sang joyfully, and villagers gathered from all corners to witness the moment. Cameras flashed, reporters asked questions, and music filled the air. Amara stood tall on stage, dressed in soft gold, with her hair braided neatly, a true symbol of grace and strength. Just as the final song ended and the crowd began to cheer, something unexpected happened. A hush fell over the audience as a familiar face stepped forward. Selina. She was dressed in a dull shawl, her eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses. In her trembling hands, she held a wrapped box, something she called a gift. Her lips quivered and she put on a sad face as she slowly walked toward the stage. Amara's heart skipped a beat when she saw her. For a moment, she felt like a child again, scared and small. But then she took a deep breath. This wasn't the same Amara who once cried in the rain. She was no longer broken. Selina reached the steps of the stage, her voice shaking. "Amara, my daughter," she said, forcing out a tear. "I made mistakes. I was hurt too. Life was hard for me. Please forgive me. This is for you." She held out the box. People in the crowd began whispering. Some looked angry, others confused. The children fell silent. Even the air seemed to pause. Amara stepped forward slowly, looking her stepmother in the eyes. Then she gently took the microphone and spoke, not with anger, but with calm and strength. "You left me in the rain with nothing," she said. "You told me I was worthless. You didn't just take away a home, you took away love, safety, and kindness." Selina tried to speak again, but Amara held up her hand. "I am not here to embarrass you. I'm not here for revenge. I built this school so no other girl feels what I felt." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry. She stayed strong. "I believe in forgiveness," she continued, "but forgiveness doesn't mean giving someone another chance to hurt you again." The entire crowd gasped. Then, after a beat, a round of applause broke out. Slow at first, then louder, then rising like a wave. People stood. They clapped not just for Amara's words, but for her courage to speak the truth in front of the one who tried to break her. Selina's face fell. Her fake tears stopped. She looked around, realizing this wasn't her moment. Her trick hadn't worked. She lowered her head, dropped the gift on the ground, and slowly turned away. Amara didn't watch her go. She turned back to the crowd and smiled gently. "This school is for the forgotten," she said, her voice steady. "But we don't forget who we are, and we never let pain become a cage." That night, while stars lit the sky, Amara sang for the children, songs of freedom, healing, and strength. And for the first time, the village of Kubwa didn't just see a girl with a golden voice. They saw a queen. The song was called "Daughter of the Rain." It started with a soft hum, just like the lullaby Amara used to sing to herself when she was cold and alone under that broken cart in Mji Kuu. The first lines were quiet, full of pain, but as the music rose, so did the strength in her voice. It told a story, not just her story, but the story of every girl who had ever been forgotten. Every child who had cried in the dark, every soul who had ever been thrown away like trash and still dared to dream. Amara didn't just release a song. She opened a wound and poured music into it. When Daughter of the Rain first dropped online, people didn't just listen. They froze. Some cried. Some stood still in their kitchens. Others pulled over their cars to hear every word. Within hours, the song went viral. Within a day, it became a national cry for hope. Radio stations played it non-stop. TV channels invited Amara to speak about the meaning behind her lyrics. But she always said the same thing. That song is not just mine, it belongs to anyone who's ever felt unseen. Children in school started singing it during morning assembly. Young girls sang it while fetching water from the wells. A choir of orphans performed it during a festival in Lusaka and made the entire audience weep. Even the president of the country tweeted, "Every nation has a song that wakes its soul. Ours is Daughter of the Rain." Back in Kubwa, the village where Amara had once been kicked out like dirt, something changed. Children who had never spoken her name before now sang her song as they played. Mothers hummed it while making dinner. The same people who once ignored her pain now played her music loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. And Selina, she couldn't escape it. Everywhere she turned, there it was. In the market, at the bus station, even at the tiny shop near her house. Daughter of the Rain followed her like a shadow. Not in anger, not as punishment, but as a reminder. Amara didn't release the song for revenge. She released it to heal. One day, a little girl in tattered clothes stood outside the Amara's School of Voices and Light, singing the song word for word, her eyes closed, her voice full of emotion. Amara watched from her office window, tears sliding down her cheeks. That moment was everything. She stepped outside, walked over to the girl and knelt down beside her. "What's your name?" she asked. "Zuri," the girl whispered shyly. "Do you know why I wrote that song?" Amara asked, brushing the dust from the girl's cheek. Zuri nodded. "Because the rain didn't wash you away, it made you grow." Amara smiled, stunned at the wisdom in the girl's words. She pulled her into a hug, and the cameras caught the perfect shot. That photo later became the cover of Amara's Music Foundation website. Amara and Zuri, two daughters of the rain, holding each other in the sunlight. The song didn't just make charts, it made change. People began donating to shelters. Music schools for girls started opening in smaller towns. Survivors of abuse began sharing their own stories, saying, "If she can rise, so can we." Daughter of the Rain wasn't just a hit, it was a movement, and at the center of it stood Amara. Not broken, not bitter, but shining like the very light her mother once wrote about. "You were born for greatness. Never let darkness dim your light." And she never did. The documentary was called When Karma Comes with Cameras. It was aired on every major channel across Africa and uploaded on every streaming platform. Within minutes, it started trending. People didn't just watch it, they felt every second of it. The opening showed young Amara sitting alone under a cart in the rain, shivering, hungry, broken. Then came her voice, that golden voice that shook a nation. As the film played, millions saw her pain, her rejection, her nights on the street. They saw Baba Tunde giving her bread. They saw Zola Ndedi stop in her tracks, eyes wide at Amara's voice. They saw the first audition, the standing ovation, the interviews, the viral songs, the foundation, the school. And then came the ending. The camera cut to a small, dimly lit room in the village of Kubwa. Selina sat alone, her eyes locked on the screen. No makeup, no fancy clothes. Just a broken woman watching the girl she once called nothing become everything. On the screen, the world chanted, "Amara, Amara, Amara." The camera zoomed in on Selina's face. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. She just stared, like someone who finally realized what they'd lost forever. Her hands trembled slightly and her lips quivered, but no words came out. That was the final shot. The screen faded to black with one line, "This is what happens when a voice refuses to be silenced." And in that silence, millions felt the power of karma and the rise of a girl who turned pain into purpose. If you enjoyed this story, I'm certain you'll enjoy the next one showing on your screen right now. Please click on the thumbnail to watch the next story. I'd appreciate your support. Like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to my channel. See you in my next story. Bye.